Okay, here we go to 15, which is the summation of Cicero's defense of Caelius in the accusation of being a part of the Catalonian conspiracy. Um, and this was almost subtext, I think, in the main. So it wasn't one of the main charges, but it was sort of a subtext charge that they just kept throwing, hoping, almost like hoping something would stick. So in this, Cicero starts off with basically by saying, your argument is weak and pathetic. You can read through it again yourself. He's like, you have tried to throw all these different accusations at him. Nothing is sticking, and therefore your oration de lapse est has slipped away, has collapsed, basically. Indeed, you've tried, notice the titubantur and the strictum, unsteadily and superficially, to have made to make this one a friendship or a no, let me try that again. A participant in, there we go, in the Catalonian conspiracy, but you have absolutely no evidence for this. There is no crime or no accusation that can stick. And in fact, this oration of this rather young man, I really think this is interesting here that he says this eloquent adolescentius, this eloquent youth. Adolescentus, remember, guys, is not an adult. It is of a young man. Let's say, I'm trying to come up with ages here, and I'd have to look it up, but it is a slow, what do we want to call it? Like a slur, not a slur, but a slow diss, like a low key. God, you guys come up with a useful anachronism. I don't know what they would say, but it's like Cicero just subtly calling out one of the accusers and saying, well, this eloquent young guy here, his speech is not able to hold together. It is collapsing again. Um, and he is suggesting subtly that because he is a youthful lawyer, he doesn't know what he's saying, right? I mean, it's very subtle, but it is present. And he ends up by saying, by what anger would Caelius have ever gone into this conspiracy? By not only what anger or what furor, what rage, but also what such great woundness, what such great wound in his morality and in his nature and in his fortunes would he have had to have in order to have gone into this, because it was such an unthinkable thing to have been a part of the crimes of Catiline. Also, he points out, when did we ever hear the name of Caelius in that suspicion? Remember, ista is always very pejorative. And when we talk about the suspicione here, we're talking about the Catalonian conspiracy. So obviously, now it's rumored, and I think even the Romans knew, that not everybody who had been a part of the Catalonian conspiracy was accused of being in the Catalonian conspiracy. They didn't have evidence for all the conspirators. Apparently, this was quite widespread. And there were many foolish young men who had their parents bail them out of some rather poor decisions. So not everybody was caught in this roundup of evildoers. Of course, Catiline got confused, was, kicked out and killed, and all the people that rallied with him or left Rome with him were, of course, they were done. But some of the people who at the last minute decided to quote unquote see the light, I think may have been sort of, they turned a blind eye to them, if that makes sense. So there were a number of conspirators that were not accused. And it's because the Romans either didn't know them or couldn't prove it. But he does mention here that Caelius's name was never heard in any of the trials of the Catalonian conspiracy. And there were huge documents of names, because Catiline's mistress actually is the one that went to Cicero and called him out, and she's the one that recorded his secret meetings. And if I remember correctly, she's also wrote down the names of several people that were involved in this conspiracy as well. So they had lists of names of potential conspirators. And in any of that, Caelius's name was never mentioned, which of course is you know, it looks good for Caelius now that maybe he was never a part of this. Okay. Um, and Cicero starts to wrap up 15 by saying, really, I've talked too much about this already. There's no proof. I've said too much. Let's move on because really you guys have nothing to say. But oh, wait, he's never quite as done as we think he is because he wraps up with these two sentences here, which basically is like, and anyway, how, how insane would Caelius have had to have been if he was guilty of this charge to have brought a charge of conspiracy against someone else? Because if we remember, hold on, who is it that he brought the charge against? I'm trying to remember the name. I think it's um barbarous, but I'll double check because Caelius had brought charges against someone else for being a part of this conspiracy. And so again, Cicero's like, why would he have brought charges against someone else if he was also a part of this conspiracy? Sort of assuming that all criminals, I guess, those who plot together stay together. I don't know. Or in the saying like, why would you bring up these charges again if you were afraid that you were going to have them pressed against you? Maybe, what is it they say, least said, soonest mended? Maybe just shush about it. So Cicero wraps up 15 by saying, honestly, your argument has no legs to stand on. Everything you said is completely collapsed. His name was never mentioned. And oh, by the way, why would he have ever brought charges up against someone else if he himself was guilty? Okay, and that's 15 in a nutshell. It's kind of it's a short, I think it's one of the shortest ones we have actually, as far as lines go. Yeah, it is very short. 16 might be shorter, but 16 is in some ways so much more confusing. I'm going to do 16 next. Um, so 15 is wrapping up Cicero's argument in that, by the way, you have no legs to stand on, and my client was completely innocent the whole time. All right, and so that is 15, and then let's look at 16 next. I'm going to stop this.